All right, welcome everyone to this episode of signing off. We're rolling now. I feel like we're getting into a good rhythm here. Yasmeen.
Yes.
You know what I like about our next guest is like it's not every day that someone's sort of signing off moment can be tied back to the late great Robin Leach. So there's a little setup for our viewers for our next guest.
That's a good tease, man.
You see that? Skills.
Couple years in the news industry. We learned a couple of things. Yes, we were so excited. You know, it's funny when you work in news, people think it's so competitive. And I mean, I guess sometimes it is, but
yeah,
I would say for the majority of us, even if you don't know another reporter or another anchor, you're like, oh, I'm friends with you. And like, that's how I feel. I'm sorry, we haven't even introduced. Sean McAllister is our guest. I'm so excited to talk to him. I feel like we're friends with Sean, even though I don't know how many times we've actually met in person.
right.
So this is going to be a great opportunity to, chat it up.
Yeah, chat it up. We're gonna bring in our new soulmate here to HQ Land. Sean, welcome, sir. Sean McAllister, welcome.
Todd, Yasmeen, how are you guys? And listen, I feel the same way. I know I sat in a newsroom in a totally separate building and watched both of you. So I feel like there's already that connection, plus our mutual friends and mutual respect also. And that goes a long way to having that friendship feeling. So it's great to be here talking with you guys.
Yeah, it's not like Anchorman. We weren't like meeting in the streets because Yasmeen and I were at the ABC station. Sean was at the Fox station in Las Vegas, and it wasn't Anchorman. We weren't meeting in the streets to have a brawl. It was more like we'd look up and be like, oh yeah, that guy's good. Oh yeah, he's good. You know.
And also, we're all in the trenches. It feels like together. You're like, oh, how much sleep did you get? How much sleep did you get?
Well, that is like it's like the traumatic bonding that goes on, right? We all know the stuff that we all had to go through, and because of that, we're one.
Yeah, it's true. You meet people in the business, and it's like they tell you, and you share. You start showing each other scars. And it's like you just kind of have that hug, that moment of like, okay, you made it out,
right?
Or you survived 10 years or 20 years in the business. Good for you.
You're still standing.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, since we don't really have a history working together in the same newsroom or anything, let's start at the beginning. How did you start off in news?
Well, I started off by kind of clawing my way into news. After I graduated college, I didn't have a job to go into. So I was working with my uncle at a contracting company. I was reading blueprints all day long. One of my major jobs was counting the number of lockers in a school on blueprints. And lockers on blueprints are about that big. And I found myself falling asleep on the drafting table every afternoon. And I thought, you know what? I've got to start doing what I know I was meant to do. And there was like one of those cooperative extension courses that was offered back in my hometown of Rochester, New York. And one of the morning news anchors was hosting one of those courses. I signed up. I got her information, hounded her until I could start hounding her managers in the newsroom, and hounded them until I got an interview to go in and plead my case to work for free until they would hire me. And that's how I got in.
I mean, good. It's a good basis for being a reporter, just because you're hounding people all day, every day, and you got to get that thick skin. So I love that start.
Yeah, I mean, and it was something that I always knew I wanted to do as a kid. I would make an entire CNN set in my bedroom. I would bring every lamp in the house up there with the camcorder, and I would produce my own newscast. I know that there's pictures floating around still back at home.
I need them. I need them. We need them.
And my ceiling had a whole bunch of tack holes in it from hanging sheets and backdrops. It was like a whole thing. So from a very young age, I knew that I always wanted to write the news. my intention was never to be in front of the camera. It was always to write the news.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have the face and the look of a writer. That's for sure. Yeah.
Hey, listen,
You're so photogenic. You know, I could say, I lost the crown for the most handsome guy as part of this podcast when you joined us here. So it's funny, yeah, because you talk about like breaking into the business. I mean, you basically you worked for free in order to get in, and then you got this great opportunity to come to Las Vegas and start the More Show, which for people who don't know, it's like an entertainment talk, kind of after news show here in Las Vegas that was wildly, and I believe still very popular.
Yeah, and I've been very fortunate in my career, and I've had opportunities that I don't know a ton of producers have. And I mean, from the very start in Rochester, I was involved in relaunching and rebranding shows and creating the formats of shows from scratch, and having managers who were trusting enough to say, you know what, do what you think is best. We need to sign off on it, but you kind of have free range to do whatever. And when I came here to Las Vegas after about a year and a half of producing the news overnights for the morning news, this opportunity was presented to me to spearhead the creation and launch of the More Show, a lifestyle and entertainment program. And it really was. We had a blank piece of paper, and we just started putting ideas down, formatting the show, coming up with a list of rotating guests who would come through on a regular basis, interviewing all those people to make sure they were a good fit and that they'd be good on TV. It was probably 6 to 8 months of planning before we actually launched in the fall of 2006. And that show is still going on, and it ended up evolving into an entertainment department that I was overseeing of like 20 people.
I have to say, from the outside looking in, which is I'm sure always how it seems, that looked like a great gig. You got to interview really famous, interesting people. You weren't necessarily out at all of the doom and gloom stories that some of us had to go to. And it always, again, from the outside, looked like a fun, glamorous Las Vegas job to have, that you were like, at some point, I'm good. I'm gonna walk away.
Well, you know what? It was a terrific job there. I had terrific colleagues who were contributing to that process each and every day. We were on red carpets all the time with the biggest names in Hollywood and here in Las Vegas. We got to go behind the scenes of all the massive productions that we have here on the Las Vegas Strip. Big award shows that would come here, we'd be right there as well. But it was actually in covering one of those entertainment stories that I didn't know it at the time, but the seed was planted. And Todd, this is what you were alluding to. The seed was planted that maybe this wasn't what I was going to be doing for the rest of my career. I was on an assignment. Robin Leach, the great, entertainment host, producer, TV visionary, the man behind Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. He was there as well, and we were chatting, and it was shortly after I had started hosting full time on our evening entertainment show. And he said, I'm not even going to try and do his voice because it's too iconic to butcher. But he essentially said to me, he was like, you have reached the pinnacle of what you are going to do at that station. And in my mind, I was like, okay. I mean,
what do you know?
Yeah. Well, what do you know, Robin Leach? Come on. But yet years later, that came to be true. I was offered the opportunity to stay for as long as I wanted to stay. But there was something inside of me, and it just so happened to be when I turned 40. So I don't think it was a midlife crisis, because I feel like there's negative connotations to that. But I turned 40, I got married, and then at the end of that year in 2019, I had to make the decision whether I was going to extend my contract there or not. And I was like, you know what? There are so many things that I still want to do. I'm a creative person. I have a lot of ideas, but I I wasn't going to be able to see those ideas through in the confines of that TV station. And so I made the decision that it was time to step away and take advantage of the years of great experience that I had and put them to use for myself.
So when you didn't sign that next contract, did you have a plan at that point, or was your plan to just take a pause?
The plan was never to take a pause. I feel like my entire career has just been a series of very rare experiences. I started talking with my bosses at the beginning of 2019 about what my future looked like there. I don't know. It was not intentional. I didn't go in and say, all right, am I getting another contract or what? It was more, it came up organically, and the conversation just kept evolving. And about halfway through 2019 was when we ultimately had the conversation where I said, you know what? I think this is it. I'm going to look for something outside of this station and outside of this company. And I think they were shocked, to be honest with you, that I told them that. But at the same time, that gave me 6 months to really put a plan into place. And I called up every single one of the contacts that I had made throughout my 15 years at the Fox 5 TV station, called each and every one of them, let them know that I was branching off and what my plans were, and started to really build a foundation of what my next step was going to be. So luckily, within a week of leaving, I already had gigs lined up.
And it's interesting. Once you told them that you had intentions of not re-signing, of leaving, A, what was the environment like there? Was it supportive? And B, did you go through any period of saying, "Oh man, what did I just say? I didn't really quite mean to say that. Maybe, should I, maybe I'll just sign a year contract or get a 6-month extension. I need more time." What was that 6-month window like?
There was never a moment I looked back. I knew in my head and in my heart that I was ready to be in a new environment. I was ready to take on new challenges. And it's one of those things. It's like, if you don't pull the ripcord on a parachute, you're going to hit the ground and not end up in a great state. And so I pulled that ripcord, and, I see that 6 months as my parachute that let me land gently into the next phase of career and life. So no, I never looked back. There are things that that I miss. I miss being in a studio environment every single day. I miss the control room. And that's the odd thing. Whenever the production crew was working on camera shots or tweaking lighting, I was always in there with them, and I was soaking up everything that they were doing. And I was learning from everybody around me the entire time. Photographers, editors, the people on the assignment desk, the promotions team, the sales team. Like, I was just soaking up every bit of observational wisdom that I could. And I think I was doing that unconsciously for a long time, but toward the end, when I knew that I was stepping out, even more so, I was making sure that I was learning as much as I could, so that I had as many tools in the toolbox to work from once I stepped away.
And that led to what we now was Insightful Media, and also your famous your very popular podcast called Vegas Revealed, that everyone kind of listens to for all the inside Vegas information that you and your business partner Dana Roselli started, right? I mean, it kind of started then, but you didn't know. It's so funny how life works out that you didn't know that was your path, but somehow you guys kind of found each other as she was also leaving the TV news business too.
Yeah, and it's funny. We were together at an event months before either of us had decided that we were not going to renew our contracts. And we had always talked about doing a podcast together, and just about Las Vegas, all the good stuff that Las Vegas has to offer. So that was always something that we had talked about. And, we had been in communication quite a bit as 2019 was winding down. And we thought, you know what, this could be a good time to do the podcast. The podcast was the genesis of really working together and creating something more. We never really, before mid-December of 2019, we didn't sit down and say, let's start a business together. I think we almost decided that in the span of a week.
I have to say, looking at it, it makes so much sense. When I started, I follow both of you on social and was watching this evolve, I think probably like the rest of Las Vegas, and just seeing all of the updates, the podcast, the media company. I was like, oh yeah, of course that's what they're doing. That it just, everything feels like it clicks, at least again from the outside. I'm sure you went through some hiccups and bumps along the way, but I just have to say it feels like something you should be doing. And I think that's also probably why you've had success right from the get-go, or again, what it looks like.
Well, thank you for saying that. And truly, it does feel like it's what we're supposed to be doing. And that's not to say that everything is easy. It's not. There's a lot of, you really have to grind to build something new from the ground up. We were in a fortunate position where, each of us, Dana and myself, had built a pretty good library of contacts over the years. And, being on TV for years, there's, a certain recognition that comes with that, especially from like a social media standpoint. So we're fortunate to have that in our corner. And, I'm not going to pretend to say that didn't make a difference. Yeah. It did. And that opened up doors and opportunities for us, but still we're grinding every single day to make sure that we have work, because we know the second that we stop grinding and making calls and going to events and handing out our card and telling people what we do, the second we stop doing that, the jobs are going to dry up. And so we do make it a point to make events a part of our business. I mean, it's networking, right? It doesn't matter what field you're in. You have to be out there and connect with people in order to advance yourself and your business. So, I love that it looks like it's the right fit, and that, everything is rosy, and overall it is, but it is a grind, and we do work at it every single day.
And to see where you guys are now versus where you started, and if you could go back to that time when you had that conversation with your news director or your general manager, whoever that was, to say, I'm gonna sign off. I'm going in a different direction. Going back, what were some of the biggest fears you had, and how did you overcome some of those fears? What did you do about them?
Well, I think the biggest fear was will I be able to make enough money to pay my bills and contribute to my family environment? Because that's a very scary thing when you branch out of something that is known and something that is comfortable. that I think was my biggest fear. And how did I overcome that? I overcame that by not having a backup plan. I think when you don't have a backup plan, it requires you to put 8,000% into plan A. If you have a plan B that's just sitting there waiting to catch you, how hard are you really going to work for plan A? And so I think plan A can always evolve and turn into something different. But, and different people have different mindsets and different way of doing things. But for me, I think not having a backup plan is a big driver in making sure that what we're doing is successful.
That's good advice. It's scary advice, but I agree that comfort is going to always, that safety net is always going to maybe hold you back or make you inspire you to not make one more phone call or log off an hour early or, do all those things. Well, it's going to be fine. I've got this other plan, this trust fund, hopefully a trust fund. I don't know what that situation is, but
yeah, I'd love to know what that's like.
What is that like? Call in, email us.
If only my parents worked harder. Damn them.
Damn them.
This is a new podcast now.
No, but I think that, and that's the drive is an inherent thing. And that's something that I'm fortunate to have a business partner like Dana Roselli, who has the same kind of drive. And we talk pretty often about having the same type of work ethic. And we're from the same hometown of Rochester, New York, something that didn't really click for us until we met out here in Las Vegas shortly after 2005. And that's a blue collar town, and, our parents, it's very odd. Our families kind of have a lot of parallels. Our moms both had almost mirroring jobs in different school districts. Our dads kind of had similar jobs in like factory settings, big company factories. And so I think that there is that inherent work ethic that is built into us just growing up in that environment. And we like to credit Rochester for our work ethic.
And maybe Wegmans. I think about Wegmans often.
So do I. That is the best place on the face of the earth.
The best. It's the best one.
Store is the best grocery store on the face of the planet. And it's not even a grocery store. It's so much more than that.
So much more. It's like a lifestyle. This is another podcast. We can do this all day, folks. Let's talk about Wegmans.
Oh yeah, it's an experience. It's an experience going to Wegmans. I like that. I like insightful media powered by the streets of Rochester and Wegmans.
And Wegmans.
It is.
That's for free. Sean.
And we get a sponsorship. Danny Wegman, what are you doing?
I was going to say, listen, there are some entrepreneurs sitting right here on the screen who would love to work with Wegmans.
Yes. Let's put it out there. Let's make it happen, Sean.
All right, Sean. So now, as we wrap it up, we like to really the most important part, which is really kind of why we do this.
It really is.
Our trip motive gets revealed here. We always ask our guests, what is it that they're streaming? What have they seen lately that they could share with the rest of us, so that we don't have to fight or spar with our partners at home and waste 20 minutes on a Saturday night or Sunday, whatever it is.
We're all fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I am. Well, first of all, as I think of the name of the show that we're streaming right now, I will tell you that every season of RuPaul's Drag Race is constantly running. We actually just restarted Yellowstone from the beginning again. Now that we've watched it was 1883 and 1923, we watch Yellowstone from the beginning so that we can start to put those pieces together.
Together. I love that.
Did like this, like a Star Wars where you started at episode 4, you know, and then now you're seeing the prequel in a lot of ways, right?
Exactly.
See, Yasmeen, there's another Star Wars reference for Yasmeen. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
We can go back to Wegmans.
So we've done that. I am totally blanking on the show that we just streamed.
Who was in it?
Maybe it's because I work too hard on Insightful Media during the day, and that's the time when my mind just shuts off and something is on TV.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. You could text us later and we could throw it in the captions or something. You know.
Well, I'll do that.
Yes.
I'll go watch my history.
Sean, this was so wonderful. And now I feel like I was like, oh, we're friends. I feel like we're even more friends now. This was so nice.
Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for inviting me to chat with you guys. It's been great.